Thanks for your purchase. This is what you're going to get when you order the spare tire delete kit from HornBlasters.com. Inside the box, you'll find adequate packing material. Ooh, nice. Here's the spare tire delete bracket, powder coated steel bracket. In the second box, our shocker air horn, air tube, fittings, pressure switch, 5/16 airline, 12 gauge red primary wire, accessory wire, 18 gauge blue accessory. Ooh, a pretty HornBlasters gauge right there. Ooh, the Fire 444 Nightmare compressor. Additional fittings, push connect fittings, brass reducer bushings, safety blow off, drain cock, and a 1/4 to 1/8 reducer for the pressure switch. Here's the solenoid valve. One thing a lot of people miss on this valve, there's actually an arrow, and they are directional, so you want to make sure the airflow goes from in on the one side and out. The arrow's right underneath the bracket there. That's like the main tech support phone call we get. Victory! So now that we've got everything unpacked, we're going to attach the horns to the bottom of the STD bracket, like so. Throw those on the bottom, and then mount the tank or the compressor. No real order or wrong way to do things. We find the horns on the bottom first is nice. Never hold the compressor from the top. This cast piece here, people think it's like a handle, not supposed to be grabbed or held right there. Don't do it. After securing the 4 horns to the bottom of the STD bracket, you can use the push to connect 90-degree elbow fittings included in your hardware bag here. Now you don't need to put Teflon tape on these seals because these aren't going to be under constant pressure, so you have no worries about leaks. Once you've got your horns mounted up and your push connect fittings on them, you're going to go ahead and attach the compressor. In the bag is your compressor mounting hardware. Once you finish installing the air compressor to the bracket, we're going to install the remote relocation kit. Remove the inlet plug out of your compressor, like so. Discard. Manny's gone ahead and Tefloned this. This is the 1/4 inch to 3/8 inch tube remote relocation kit. Really nice feature. It's kind of like a snorkel kit that allows your compressor to breathe nice clean air.
So after we got the air compressor installed, the cool thing about this kit is it comes with what's called an air filter relocation kit. So you're able to install the air filter up away from the compressor. So when the compressor's running, it's not sucking in all the dirt and water and moisture you're driving through. You can run this up to 6 foot away from it, maybe up in the bed rail. So that way it's sucking in clean, fresh air instead of whatever the weather happens to be that day. So now we got the compressor and the horns installed along with our fittings. We're going to work on the tank next. Before we get the tank onto the bracket, we're going to install a couple fittings into it first because it's just easier. So the tank comes with a few 1/4 inch ports here in the middle and some 1/2 inch ports on the end. So you're going to make sure you take all the plugs out before you get started. So on the bottom of the tank, we're going to install our 175 psi safety blow off. It's a good feature to have on the tank because if your pressure switch were to ever give out, the safety blow off is going to keep the system from exploding. It already has the PTFE applied to the fitting, so there's no need for extra tape. The drain fitting is going to need some tape on it before we install it. We'll make sure it's flat, doesn't have any wrinkles. And the kit came all the necessary hardware to do that. So we've got 4 bolts, 8 washers, and 2 locking nuts to make sure it's nice and secure. So now we've got the tank installed. Next step is install an electric valve. Like Matt was mentioning before, there is a directional arrow on the back of the valve. You want that arrow pointing towards where the horns are going to come out of. So there's a 4-way fitting that has a piece of airline that goes from here to each bell. You want to make sure that's on the arrow coming out of the valve. Coming out of the tank, we have a 1/2 to 1/2 90-degree push connect. PTFE already installed. We're going to hand tighten it into the tank. So next we're going to install this valve onto our bracket. There's a small piece of airline that comes with the kit. We're going to make the connection between the 2 fittings bolt the valve to the bracket, and run our airline to the individual bells. While everything's loose, we're going to use this time so that way we can measure our 1/2-inch airline and still be able to work it into our fittings where we can move the valve around some. Mark it. The airline simply pushes into the one side while you still have it loose, pushes into the other. So now you want to line everything up nice and level. Make sure your airline's pushed in all the way, and then we'll tighten the bolts up here so everything sits the way it should. So next we install the 5/16 airline from our valve to each bell. Now the trick here is to make sure that all 4 pieces of airline that you run to the bells are the same length. So what I like to do is figure out how far I need to go to the farthest bell away, and I'll make my mark, and then I'll cut the other 3 pieces the same length. And now I'll use that piece to measure out the other 3 pieces of airline from my other 3 horns. So now when you're running your airline, you want to figure out what's going to be the easiest, safest, and just kind of looks the best as you're installing the airline. You want to keep the airline away from the head of the compressor because it does get hot when it runs, and you don't want to run the chance of the airline melting. You want to keep it away from any sharp corners or objects. See, we're just going to kind of loop it around through there. All right, so the last step is going to be plumbing in our compressor, our gauge, and our pressure switch. So on the pressure switch, you want to make sure that the brass fitting is nice and tight going into the tank. What you need to be careful of is you only want the pressure switch to be snug into the fitting. If you try to tighten it too much and crank down too hard, the fitting will snap. You only need about 12 to 14 foot-pounds of torque to make sure that your switch is nice and tight. Next, we're going to install the fitting on the inside of the tank where our compressor is going to come into it. Alright, next we're going to install our leader hose into the fitting. And the end of the leader hose is another one of those red plugs. You want to make sure you move that before installation. Also, take note on the actual check valve itself, it tells you not to over torque it between 16 and 18 foot-pounds. This is a moving part inside the fitting that it helps the compressor build pressure inside the tank. If you over tighten the fitting, it'll cause it to fail, causing premature compressor failure and a phone call to us to help you diagnose the problem. So again, on this, you just want to snug it. You don't want to go overly tight with it. So now our spare tire delete kit is basically done. We've made all our connections. We've put all our fittings in. Basically, we're going to put it under the truck, put our spare tire crank into the bracket. We've got a main power wire to run. We have an ignition positive wire to run, and we have the wire to run for the factory horn. Also, there's 3 grounds that are going to share a grounding point. One for the compressor, one for the valve, which I've already extended the valve one out a little bit, and one for the pressure switch. So we're going to find a bare spot on the frame, if not make one, and we're going to ground all 3 of these together.
Are yours forward or backward on yours?
Forward.
See what it sounds like.